Hey there, ladies and gents, Spazzy Dragon here in case interims, and welcome back to the channel. So, today is the day. Now, at the time of recording this video, it is in fact about 9 in the evening for me, and some hours ago, 30 years ago from now, little Spazzy came into this world and became a nuisance, is what I would actually want to say. But honestly, celebrating my 30th birthday alone in, during a pandemic, global pandemic, was not exactly what I thought it would be back when I was a kid. But, yeah, needless to say, it's been a very interesting life so far. And, yeah. So, about that AMA. Needless to say, I didn't really think I would get a lot of questions in general because, hey, this YouTube channel is not really all that big. But thankfully I did get some, so, as I'm just waiting for the alcohol to kick in, let me just answer to some of these and, well, let's start right now. Incidentally, the B-roll for this video has been recorded after I am recording this voiceover, and as you can see I picked Freelancer simply because, hey, since we are celebrating my birthday and, memories and such, might as well go for something that was pretty much at the start of this channel, and yeah, let's go. So, first question comes from Techno9. New person here, what is the thing you like most about making your videos? Also, if it's not too personal, what work do you do for a living? The best thing about making videos on YouTube for me is the fact that I can do so without any obligations. So, I mentioned this quite a few times before, but my channel is not monetized. And in general, there's just no way you can physically send me money. So that means that I can create the content that I want personally and release it in a schedule that I find myself, being able to adhere to, or at least try to. Anyway, you'll probably notice that sometimes video projects do kind of fizzle out, but hey, there's no problem with that because it was my choice for that to happen, and I'm under no obligation to do anything. So, that's one cool thing, but really, the main thing that I like, to do these videos about is that I find a topic that I find interesting. I find it, interesting to make a video on, and just see how many people kind of enjoy that sort of thing. I never really considered myself to, grow as a channel, become, quote, a YouTuber, because, honestly, I have two very interesting jobs. So that, segues into the next part of the question. I have two jobs. I have my own business as a fire extinguisher, fire suppression sort of thing maintenance shop, and also I am a logistics manager and sales director at a stainless steel and aluminum distributor. So both of these jobs kind of, cover all of my expenses. Living in Latvia is cheap as dirt, so, as I say, living is very easy for me, actually, most of the time. I can go into detail about, how these things actually happened. Needless to say, I have a unfinished higher education. I actually went to university for only 2 years, after which I gave up. I went for becoming a technical translator, so, linguistics in general, but over time, it kind of became apparent that English in general was a language that was becoming very, very widespread in my country. Until that point, it really wasn't. When I was a kid, and I actually attended preschool and, grade school, English lessons weren't in fact compulsory. All of the current knowledge that I currently have was really gained by me from watching cartoons. Like, you have Cartoon Network, you have Nickelodeon, you have Fox Kids, and that's how I kind of self-taught myself. So when it became apparent that this language and the knowledge of this language is not really all that rare anymore in Latvia, it was kind of an obvious choice, not just for me, but also for some of the other people attending the same course. We started off as 20 people, and at the end of the day, at the end of year 2, we actually, most of us left. I think we had like 6 people remain. Yeah, of course I did end up, you know, I'm still paying off my college debt, well, you know, university debt. So, I mean, that's not really that big of a deal. It's like, what, $6 a month? But yeah, that's basically it. Camillo, 1505, what is the hardest thing of making videos on YouTube? Honestly, the hardest thing for me personally is to keep myself motivated to continue a series. So, needless to say, my videos are very basic. My videos have very minimum, very simplistic editorial styles. I don't go with over-elaborate things. I actually use VideoPad Pro for my, you know, day-to-day video editorial. And really, for me, the hardest thing about making YouTube videos is to figure out whether or not this video that I upload is interesting enough to actually make public. Now, if you take a look at all of my currently public videos in my channel, there's quite a few of them, but that's actually 1/5 of all the videos I upload on YouTube. Every week I upload about 3 of them, and maybe one of them is interesting enough or was purposely built for the sake of, you know, publication. And really, the hardest thing for me to do is keep up a ongoing, you know, sort of thing. For example, back in the day we had a Rimworld Let's Play, we had a CK2 Let's Play, but every single time I sat down for the next episode, I would open my stats, I would take a look at, you know, how well the video has done until now, and needless to say, if it had like, you know, 50 views and like 3 likes in a channel that is like halfway to 3K, well, then I simply wrote it off as a lost cause. You know, this is just interesting for me, not so much interesting for you. Might as well just, you know, make something that's interesting for you. And these days, I would say stuff like PlanetSide 2, Arma, Apex Legends, all these games are not that interesting for you guys, so it looks like most of the views and most of the votes come in from projects like Avorion and, of course, Discovery Freelancer. Although the second one of those two is, you know, very rare these days, because I think I'm kind of over Disco. But, yeah, the hardest thing is to keep myself motivated to, you know, keep making a video series. So, Nani Badger, I don't think wormholes are a good thing. Take it slow, fix your relations. One of these factions will have a warp gate to get you across the void. I've never seen a void that can be traversed by wormhole only yet. The idea of your explorer isn't that bad, but I'm not a fan in favor of using railguns, since you are in an area with only bolters. This is mostly centered around the Avorion Let's Play, so... but you, my dude, just my few cents. You can make a really big boy and actually add more and more turret slots if you really had to. Would be neat to see fly Behemoth Mothership by the time you leave the first region. That's really the case here. Not really much of a, you know, question, so let's move on to the next one. Robert Carr, how many Avorion episodes do you plan on doing, and will you finish the game again? Love your videos. Thanks, dude. Robert, that's actually a very good idea, very good question, because the previous full Let's Play of Avorion that I did for the, you know, for the previous Let's Play series was in fact made with the sole purpose of, hey, I have never actually finished Avorion, I want to do it for the first time ever, and I kind of, you know, attached it to a Let's Play to kind of keep myself motivated to, you know, actually do that. The only problem is, and this is something that I've already, you know, said before, the Avorion, you know, single-player experience is mostly the building, exploration, combat, etc., but it's not the single-player, you know, storyline, or at least the original. I still think that they would have done very well to completely redo the single-player story because the current one is kind of a remnant of the pre-alpha stage of the game, and it really feels like it. And really, it's just fighting larger and larger ships that are bigger and bigger bullet sponges, without making any tweaks to the game's AI and how they handle and how they fight you. There's really nothing else you can do about it, so I don't really know, as an answer, I don't really know if I want to, play through it, because I know for a fact that playing through Avorion to the, the last mission in the original single-player experience is not really worth it. Now, as for the DLC, I want to go through all the DLC missions for a fact. Now that, I know. Rexy Avorion. I know you probably want to keep things original in new series, but seeing Mr. Krabs again would be awesome. What other games do you like? Mr. Krabs was kind of a meme. I didn't really envision that I would actually stick to that ship design. If you remember correctly, then it was actually Mr. Krabs was born during one of our live streams because hey, let's give the ship a face and a top hat, right? As for what other games I like, see, I actually have very big troubles getting into new games. So for example, one of my recent purchases was Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I even bought a Switch for that. I didn't go for emulation. I bought a Switch, I bought the game, it was a total of about 400 euros for me, but I think I only recently got off the starting area, and I haven't really launched that thing since, and that was like a week and a half ago. At the same time, one of the recent purchases that I made for PC was in fact what was it called? See, I don't even remember the name. It was Call of Duty Black Ops, and I was actually going to make a video about it because this would have been the first Call of Duty title that I have ever played, because I actually grew up with Battlefield instead of Call of Duty. And needless to say, when Cyberpunk came out, well, I hadn't touched it for such a long time. I actually have like an hour and a half of playtime on it, so I actually had to uninstall Black Ops in order to make room for Cyberpunk. So, that's the thing. Actually, my YouTube, sorry, not my YouTube, my Steam playlist is quite extensive, but it seems that I really go back to the same few titles. So one of them is obviously Avorion, but also I really enjoy Beam and G Drive. I also enjoy the Crusader Kings series, 2 specifically, but 3... I'm still not sure if I want to start playing 3, because knowing, that developer, it's going to be playable after like 16 DLCs. So, I also like stuff like Sins of Solar Empire, I like Stellaris, I like, for example, Rebel Galaxy, although Rebel Galaxy is also one of the games that I haven't really, finished. I like RimWorld, I like simple games, really, and I like old games. Every once in a while I will return to some sort of older title, like, Unreal Tournament, for example. I might re-download, like, Half-Life 2 again, and really, it kind of is limited to those kind of games. I really have troubles trying to find, new games to play. But that is also on me because I really rarely step outside of my comfort zone. So, for example, in the recent years, I did not know that I wanted, I didn't know that I would like, for example, Beam and G. I did not know that I would like a game like Undertale. So, that's just how it is. Let's go for the next one. So, thank you for Freelancer Warzone, by the way, because if he hadn't posted all of his questions, this would be a woefully short video. Hey Spazzy, I know I promised some questions like last time, but life got into the way. Same here. Already forgot some of it, and it's currently 4 AM as I'm trying to write this, but I hope I can squeeze in a few before you make your video on it. And yes you did. Number 1. Do you believe that one day humanity gets over trivial problems to finally unite and explore the galaxy? And do you think that if we work together as a species, we can find answers to problems that were previously thought to be impossible? In this case, for example, the limitations of rules of physics, as over us would dictate that we would never reach the speed of light, let alone faster for it. But do you think that if we had the potential of either create something that would overcome these difficulties and obstacles? So, a small pretext to that, what I'm about to say, I'm not negative. I'm just looking at how the world seems to work, and I am kind of assigning my own assumptions here. But I think that no, because first of all, conflict is very profitable for many people, and for the people who would be the primary investors in large-scale operations like that, these people, well, first of all, it really takes a very specific kind of mentality to actually push for such a, goal-orientated lifestyle. All these people who are established billionaires or millionaires, it really does take a very specific kind of person. And if you are in the sort of echo chamber, as myself, then you would probably know that we are mostly, masturbation-addicted procrastinators who make fun of our bosses. So, obviously, that's not going to be one of us. At the same time, these people sometimes take the path of least resistance. So, for example, what is going to be more probable? Discovery of new technologies, or, hey, let's practice predatorial stuff on customers and consumers? I would say no, because it's just not how the world works. And also, this is something that I actually noticed quite recently, but it seems like at least here, the education system is populated by people with very pessimistic outlooks. And what usually happens is that they don't really encourage people to, seek out these sort of ventures. They don't want them to be, the next best thing. In reality, what they try to teach them is, and this is actually something I do agree with, you can live well in this established world as long as you know your limitations and, you temper your optimism with reality. So, for example, I know for a fact that I live in a, well, perhaps not a dystopian future, but I know for a fact that in the grand scheme of things, I personally don't matter. But as long as I acknowledge that and I know that, I can live perfectly comfortably without any stress, because, well, why stress about something that you don't really have control over? But, yeah. So, no, I really don't think that we will be able to do that, because it requires effort. Based on all the games you've played so far, and the influence they may have on you, what would you say would make the perfect video game? Or, if you would have had the opportunity, what game would you make? And if by any chance, is there anything close that you can recommend? See, the thing about the perfect video game based on games that I've played, it kind of steers the conversation into the assumption that it would be kind of this collection of all of these games and ideas into one coherent game, and I really don't think that that is going to help. I don't think that's going to be the perfect video game. I would rather a video game focus on something and do it very well than try to kind of, spread itself out too thin. I'm pretty sure that this is, in fact, one of the pitfalls of the 21st century, well, not 20, but, 2020 game designers, one of the pitfalls that they try to market for as broad as a population as possible, and so there is no one trying to make anything niche. For example, a very good game in the recent years would be the Dark Souls series that, spawned a lot of other games like that. And mostly because people didn't really realize that, hey, I want a game that is brutal and would challenge me, but is still completely beatable as long as I know the mechanics, right? That would be one example of that. But then you have games that totally miss the point. They put in these mechanics, and they kind of try to implement everything else, and then it kind of turns into a mess. I'm pretty sure it's a completely functional game, but it really doesn't give the same satisfaction or the same, mental reaction that I would get for something completely specialized and refined. So, going back to the original question, based on all the games you played so far, what would you say would make the perfect video game? And I would say refine something in specific and make a game based around that. Because just throwing in a huge amounts of mechanics and tried establish the things into it is really kind of a rehash for the most part. It's people who experiment with something completely new that actually kind of pushes the the envelope forward. So what I would say, I don't want to worry about what would be a perfect video game based on the previous ones. I want it to happen out of the blue and with something that I haven't seen before, because that is in fact why it would be so unique. Number 3. With years of Discovery experience and being part of a community for so long, what do you think freelancer or mods lack that would make the game better or more appealing, either to bring back old players or to open up the gates for new ones to keep the game alive? And see, this is a very tricky question, and it's something that I've elaborated before on, and I think it's not so much that the game has lost its appeal. There is a grain of truth there, yes, but also consider when Discovery came out. Back in the mid-2000s, games were a lot more simpler, and they were a lot more moddable in general. Not unlike the live service encrypted nonsense that we currently have. And the thing is, back in those days, it was apparent that the average player, like the average person, could, without being in any way associated with game development, figure out how to modify the game, aka mod the game, and establish his own thoughts on how to make the game better. That's how mods happen. That's how Counter-Strike happened, for example. That's how Red whatever happened. That's how Guns of Icarus happened. And the thing is, it's not so much that anything has changed over time, it's just that the new generation of gamers in general, they don't have this ability. These games that we currently play, they are much more complicated. They are better mechanically, sure, but it makes them almost impossible to tamper with. And most of these games are actually built in a way that you cannot tamper with. So I really don't think there's going to be another Discovery, because I'm pretty sure that Star Citizen is not going to be moddable. I'm pretty sure that stuff like, I don't know, off the top of my head, I really don't think that, let's face it, Christ, I forgot the name. What was the alternative to Star Citizen? Elite Dangerous, there we go. I don't think that's going to be moddable. So that's basically it. The reason why Discovery is not going to happen again is simply because there is no platform that would appeal to a modern 2020 gamer in terms of game mechanics, visuals, etc., that can be used as a platform for further development made by the players. Especially when, modding in general, the modding community, is being actually exploited. Like, look at Bethesda. Look at the Bethesda mod marketplace. They are still trying to incorporate mods as, as a part of their business, so that actually limits players of what they want to do. So, for example, someone will want to make, I don't know, a Star Wars ripoff, well, not ripoff, but a Star Wars game based on the Fallout 4 engine. I'm pretty sure it is possible, but is it going to be physically playable when Bethesda has such a control over what you currently have? Game and user license agreements, especially for games that are supposed to exist on the marketplace for a very long time, these end user license agreements are actually pretty brutal. And so I really don't think that it's going to happen again, not because of people that don't want it, it's just that we're not living in the same sort of environment anymore. So, after many playthroughs and attempts, where does Avorion excel? And if you could, what would you personally change to improve the game where it's lacking? Oh dear. Well, this is something I already talked about in general. I think that one of the biggest problems with Avorion is that they kept the original single-player campaign. It should have been run as a test, and then it should have been just replaced with something completely different in terms of theme for the release. I also really don't think that the whole procedural generation thing is being used to its best, best levels. I'm pretty sure that it would be more interesting for a randomly generated map, the relations, etc., but actually keep it very, very similar to, say, Mount and Blade Warband, where you have your, established kind of main factions, and, just build everything around that. Form relations, assist or not assist wars, establish your own place, make allies. I think that the whole race to the center thing is really not all that interesting, mechanically speaking. Sure, you get more and more interesting things as you have the capability of building different types of ships with different types of blocks, but I really don't think that that's gonna help. I've also complained about the randomization for stuff like names, for example, and one of my favorite things to say about that is when everything is randomized and everything is unique, nothing is unique because it's just a humongous just blob of random characters that you don't really register or remember about. So in the current Let's Play, for example, I would not be able to tell you anything meaningful about the current area that we are in. And that's probably because the game was never meant to be played so slowly. You were supposed to, get out of the iron sectors in like maybe an hour and a half. So, I don't know. I would really like I'm pretty sure that it's not something the original team is going to do, let's be real about it, but I want the game to be moddable enough, and these modders to receive the necessary, backing from existing players to actually mod it into something much more interesting. Or at least, what they think it is interesting. It really goes back to the previous opinion about, games, the perfect game in general, because Avorion is one of those very rare games where the developers actually have released all the tools necessary and all the documentation necessary to make very complex mods and very steep changes to the game code itself, where I think that it's one of the rare titles in 2020 where this is possible, and I really hope this is going to happen. Looking back on your life, would you consider yourself a more emotional or a logical person when it comes to making decisions? And did you ever let either completely influence a hard decision? So, I would say that I'm leaning towards being a more emotional person, but not in the way that you would actually, think about it. I'm kind of surfing a wave without very little to no input on my life. I do not worry about things, and I just kind of look at a problem, any sort of problem, be it a problematic problem or just some sort of, encounter, and I just assume that in one way or another, I am going to go through it, and the amount of worrying, effort, or etc. is never really going to, change the outcome. So, in other words, it might be kind of depressing, it might be kind of apathetic maybe, but I'm 30 years old now, and it has worked for me. My life is just a series of coincidences and very happy, very lucky turns of events. And it has served me so far. I have lived a tremendously easy life with very little to no effort. And again, it just works. To, to coin a phrase from Todd Howard. So, yeah, I would say I'm much more... I don't apply logic. If I have some sort of problem, I just assume that it's going to happen. Like, it's going to go through it with it, and then just, you know, whatever. Do you think that you become the person you wanted to be, or is there always something to improve and prove to yourself and others? That is kind of a very tricky question to answer, and the answer is obviously no, because once you are the person that you want yourself to be, then, technically speaking, all evolution stops. But in my case, I would say I don't know what kind of person I want to be, I simply exist. Again, I'm riding a wave, and I just kind of encounter whatever obstacle I have in the way, process that information, and go to sleep, and, you know, awake to a new day. So far, so good. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to sustain it so far, and of course I'm currently living through that period of time where I'm looking around myself at other people who are near my age, and I have a feeling that they have it figured out, and I'm just kind of, you know, jerking it. But in practice, I'm pretty sure many of them have the same, you know, situation, and that's why I'm never really all that, you know, troubled about it. So, really, I don't know. Is there always something to improve? Of course there is. I'm pretty sure that at some point in time I'm actually going to go visit that dentist. It's just that, you know, there's no circumstances that require me to do it just yet. You know, it's that sort of thing. Like, I don't worry about it until it becomes a problem and then it's too late. But even when it's too late, it's not like life stops. Okay, I'm gonna lose a tooth, but, like, life lives on. I'm gonna deal with the consequences, even though I'm going to be sad that I didn't do anything sooner, but it might be a, you know, a very poor choice, but hey, it didn't stop me, so let's go. Do you enjoy what you are doing for a living, and are some of the properties of a job that would make it enjoyable? I personally worked as a maintenance, a car mechanic so far, and I hate it when things are just not happening. So I quit maintenance pretty quick. Car mechanic was somewhat dull. 90% of the time, it's the same routine, which led me to cooking, which I personally love, because there's never seems to be the same day ever again. Something's always happening. Yeah, so here's the thing. I think I'm the exact opposite person. My life stimulation, the stimulation of my life comes from off hours. And in other words, the more homogeneous and the more dull and repetitive my job is, I can completely shut it off and separate it from my life. The moment my job ends, I am free. I am free to pursue with my life, and I don't think about my job. I just don't. It is a 8 to 5 regular job, homogeneous, documents, invoices, planning, calculation, but the moment I stop, then my life starts. I play games, I go to Discord, I talk to people, and my job is not a factor in my life, in no way, shape, or form. I would say my job is interesting. So, for example, the whole fire extinguisher job, which, I mean, to be fair, I pretty much closed that whole thing down with the COVID thing simply because I wanted more free time. And I was making way more money than I, you know, would have needed for justifying 2 jobs. And yeah, it's more like I want to live a life where I don't have to factor in my job as a contribution to how my day has been. I don't want any surprises. I want it to be as flatline as possible and just be a source of money, so I can just completely detach it from my life. You ever wondered why we are here? It's one of the life-based mysteries. Why are we here? That's a good question. Why are we here? Well, technically speaking, you and I are here because it's profitable for someone to keep a population of people happy and healthy, And that gives me a chance to, you know, enjoy my life. That's really what it is. I know it sounds really, you know, depressing when you think about it, but if you don't think it as depressing, suddenly life is much more enjoyable. Happy birthday, man, and thank you for making it great content for all us to enjoy. Thanks, dude. And that is really it for the AMA. So, yeah, for the future of this channel, for the future of my own life, I pretty much see the same thing happening from now. Like, I'm changed my life. I moved out of my parents' house, I got my own place, I had my own job, and that happened in 2012. Ever since, it's been a blur. It's been a very simple lifestyle. And I'm pretty sure that nothing is going to change in the near future, or at least I hope so. I'm going to make an effort that it doesn't. But, again, even if it does, my attitude towards life is that it's going to work out. I'm going to adapt, I'm going to take the path of the least existence, and, you know, have fun. If I don't have to worry about anything, then it means that I'm living a proper life. Anyway, Spazzy here, K Syndromes. Thanks for watching. Fly safe.